It was a quiet evening. The streets were almost empty, and the soft glow of streetlights touched the ground in small golden circles. The main character, a young man named Daniel, walked home after a long day. He carried nothing but a small backpack, and his mind was filled with ordinary thoughts. He was tired, ready to sleep, ready for another boring day tomorrow. But tonight was different. Tonight, something waited for him in the shadows. As Daniel walked past an old park, he noticed movement near the edge of the road. At first, he thought it was a stray cat or maybe a child playing too late at night. But then he saw her. A little girl, no more than 9 years old, stood alone near the dark trees. Her hair was messy, her clothes dirty, and in her small hand she held something strange, something glowing faintly like a dying star. Daniel stopped. He looked around, expecting to see parents, maybe another child or someone calling her name. But the street was silent. The only sound was the soft wind moving the leaves. The girl's eyes met his, and for a moment he felt his chest tighten. Her eyes were wide, not with tears, but with fear. Real fear. "Hey," Daniel called softly, trying not to scare her. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" The girl did not answer. She hugged the glowing pendant close to her chest. Her lips trembled, and finally she whispered only 2 words. Words that froze Daniel in place. "They're coming." Daniel frowned. "Who's coming?" No reply, only silence. The girl kept staring at the dark path behind her, as if something invisible was moving closer. Something only she could sense. Daniel felt uneasy. Maybe she was imagining things, maybe she was just scared because she was lost. Still, the way she said it, the way her voice shook. It was not the fear of being alone. It was the fear of being hunted. "Listen, it's not safe for you to stand here," Daniel said carefully. "Come with me, I'll help you find your home." The girl shook her head quickly. Her eyes darted left and right like a trapped animal. "No, we can't stay here. We must hide." Before Daniel could ask why, she grabbed his hand with surprising force. Her small fingers were cold, trembling, but strong with desperation. And then, from the shadows of the trees, a sound broke the silence. Clang, it was faint, metallic, almost like metal scraping against stone. Daniel froze. It was not the sound of footsteps, not the sound of a human walking. It was heavier, mechanical, and steady, like something unnatural. The girl's grip on his hand tightened. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We have to go now." Daniel's heart raced. He wanted to believe it was nothing. Maybe a broken pipe, maybe just his imagination. But when he turned his head, he saw something. A tall shadow stood between the trees. It didn't move like a person. It didn't sway with the wind. It just stood there watching. Daniel's throat went dry. He could not see its face, only 2 faint lights glowing where eyes should be. The girl pulled him again, harder this time. "If they find me, it's over." Daniel wanted to ask, "What do you mean? Who are they? Who are you?" But the words died in his throat. His instincts screamed at him, "Leave now." He nodded quickly and followed her. Together they ran down the street, her small feet slapping against the pavement, his longer steps trying to keep up. The pendant in her hand glowed brighter with every step, as if reacting to danger. Behind them, the metallic sound grew louder. Clang, clang, clang. Daniel glanced back once. The shadow was no longer standing still. It was moving, following them, its glowing eyes fixed on the girl. His chest burned with fear, but he kept running. They turned down a narrow alley. The girl led him with certainty, as if she already knew the way, as if she had been here before. Finally, they reached an old abandoned building. Its windows were broken, the door half open, and the air smelled of dust and rust. Without hesitation, the girl pushed the door open and rushed inside, pulling Daniel with her. Inside, the air was cold. Their footsteps echoed on the cracked floor. Daniel leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath, while the girl crouched near the corner, clutching her pendant tightly. "What's going on?" Daniel whispered, his voice trembling. "Who is after you?" The girl looked at him with wide eyes. She opened her mouth, but before she could answer, a loud sound shook the building. Thud. Something had hit the door. Daniel's heart jumped. The girl covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. Then another sound came. Slow, deliberate footsteps on the floor outside. Not human footsteps. Heavier, mechanical, cold. Daniel's eyes darted toward the door, and for the first time in his life, he felt true fear. The girl whispered, barely audible. "They found us." The glow from her pendant filled the room with pale light. Shadows danced on the walls as the door creaked under pressure, and then another violent bang. Shook the building. The door was about to break. The door shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling and Daniel's pulse hammered in his ears. He wanted to believe it was just some drunk person or maybe a wild animal, but deep down he knew. The sound was not natural. The rhythm of those heavy knocks was too precise, too calculated. The girl's small hand clutched his arm. "They are here," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but the weight of her words pressed down on Daniel's chest like stone. The glow of the pendant flickered, pulsing faster with each strike on the door as if it could sense danger. Daniel's instincts screamed at him, "Run!" But run where? They were trapped inside an abandoned building with broken windows and rotting wood. Outside was worse. The shadow from before would be waiting. The door groaned under another blow. Wood cracked. A gap appeared, and through it Daniel saw a glimpse of something, shiny metal like armor reflecting the pale light of the pendant. And then, two burning eyes glowed through the gap, staring directly at him. For one frozen moment, Daniel forgot to breathe. The girl pulled at his sleeve. "This way," she urged, pointing to the far end of the hall. Daniel snapped out of his shock and nodded quickly. They sprinted down the hallway, their footsteps echoing like drums. Behind them, the door finally gave way with a thunderous crash. Splinters flew across the floor. The sound of heavy feet entered the building, metal striking stone. Clang, clang, clang. Daniel didn't look back. He didn't want to see what was following them. The girl led him through the maze of rooms. Each step seemed to echo too loudly, like a beacon for their pursuers. The air inside the building smelled of mold and iron, and the floor groaned beneath their weight. "Where are we going?" Daniel hissed between breaths. "Downstairs," the girl whispered, her eyes darting left and right. "There's a basement. They won't see us if we hide there." They turned a corner, but the noise behind them grew louder. The pursuer was faster than Daniel expected. Much faster. Clang, clang, clang. The girl stopped suddenly, almost causing Daniel to crash into her. She pointed at a broken staircase leading down into darkness. Daniel hesitated. The stairs looked weak, covered in dust and cobwebs. "Are you sure it's safe?" She looked at him, her eyes wide with urgency. "It's our only chance." Another metallic roar echoed from behind. No more time to think. Daniel grabbed her hand, and together they rushed down the stairs. The wood creaked dangerously under their weight, but it held. The basement was damp and cold. The faint glow of the pendant was the only light. Dust swirled in the air, and Daniel's lungs burned with each breath. They crouched behind a stack of old crates, trying to make themselves small. The girl pressed the pendant to her chest as if praying. Daniel leaned close. "What are those things?" he whispered. She hesitated, her lips trembling. "Hunters." The word felt wrong in Daniel's ears. Hunters. The way she said it carried more meaning than he could understand. Upstairs, heavy footsteps shook the floorboards. The sound spread across the building, slow and methodical, like the thing knew exactly where they were hiding. Daniel held his breath. His heart beat so loud he feared it would give them away. The girl's pendant glowed brighter for a moment, and the light revealed her face. She was pale, her eyes glistening with tears she refused to let fall. Daniel wanted to ask her more. Who was she? Why were these creatures chasing her? But before he could, the footsteps stopped. Silence. For a long moment, the air felt heavy, like the world itself had paused. Then, bang! The basement door above burst open. Wood shattered, and the sound of metal feet echoed down the stairs. The girl gasped, and Daniel instinctively covered her mouth to keep her quiet. His hand shook against her skin. The footsteps grew closer, step by step. The creature's shadow stretched long across the basement floor. It was massive, towering, its glowing eyes sweeping across the dark room like searchlights. Daniel pressed himself tighter against the crates. He could feel the girl trembling beside him. The creature paused, listening. Daniel's lungs burned. He couldn't hold his breath any longer. Just as the pressure in his chest reached its limit, the pendant in the girl's hands pulsed with sudden brightness. A high-pitched hum filled the air. The creature snarled, a mechanical growl vibrating through the basement. It stepped back as if the light burned it. The girl's whisper barely reached Daniel's ears. It doesn't like the light. The pendant glowed brighter, illuminating strange symbols across its surface. The creature roared again, then retreated, its heavy feet pounding up the stairs. The basement shook as it left. Then silence returned. Daniel collapsed against the wall, gasping for air. What was that thing? The girl looked at him, her eyes full of secrets. She clutched the pendant tightly, her voice low but clear. They are not from here, she said, and they will never stop. Her words sent a chill down Daniel's spine. For the first time he realized this was bigger than just helping a lost child. This was something beyond his understanding, something dangerous enough to change everything. Before he could respond, a faint sound echoed from outside. More footsteps. Not one, but many. The girl's face turned pale. She whispered the words that made Daniel's stomach twist with dread. They found us again. Daniel's heart raced. The girl's words repeated in his mind. They found us again. He listened carefully. The heavy steps outside were not one pair this time. There were many. The ground trembled slightly with each metallic strike. Whoever or whatever these hunters were, they were closing in from all directions. The girl gripped her glowing pendant tighter, her small face half lit by the strange light. Daniel wanted to ask her more, but fear pressed against his throat, keeping him silent. Finally, he whispered, "Why are they after you? What do they want?" The girl hesitated, eyes darting to the shadows. Then she leaned closer, her voice almost too soft to hear. "They want this." She held the pendant forward. "It's not just a light. It's a beacon. It calls my mother." Daniel blinked, confused. "Your mother? Where is she?" "She's coming," the girl said. Her lips trembled, but her eyes carried a strange certainty. "But until she arrives, the hunters will never stop. They can feel the signal. They can smell it." Daniel stared at the pendant. It glowed like a living thing, its symbols shifting slowly as if they were alive. He didn't understand it, but one thing was clear. This girl wasn't lying. A loud crash upstairs shook the building. Dust rained from the ceiling. The hunters were inside again. The girl grabbed his hand, whispering urgently, "We can't stay here. If they trap us, there's no escape." Daniel looked at the dark stairway. "But where do we go? They're everywhere." She tilted her head, listening carefully. Then she pointed toward a small metal grate on the far wall. It was half hidden behind broken crates. "There," she said. "It leads to the tunnels." Daniel frowned. "What tunnels?" "The ones under your city," she replied simply, as if it were obvious. "But hurry. We don't have time." With no better choice, Daniel pulled the crates aside, coughing as dust filled the air. The grate was rusted shut. He kicked it once, twice, finally it bent loose with a sharp screech. The sound echoed too loudly, and at once the footsteps above quickened. "Go," Daniel urged, pushing the girl through the narrow hole first. She slipped inside, the glow of her pendant lighting the dark passage beyond. Daniel squeezed in after her just as a deafening crash shook the basement. The hunters had arrived. The tunnel was damp, its walls lined with cracked bricks. Water dripped from above, and the air smelled of rust and mold. Daniel crawled behind the girl, his backpack scraping against stone. Behind them, the basement filled with mechanical roars. For a few terrifying seconds, Daniel thought the hunters would follow them into the tunnel, but instead their heavy steps stopped at the broken grate. He heard one of them growl, a sound like grinding gears, then silence. Daniel exhaled, sweat dripping down his forehead. For now they were safe. As they crawled deeper, the tunnel widened enough for them to walk hunched over. The girl's pendant cast just enough light to guide their steps. Daniel finally spoke again, his voice low and steady. "Tell me the truth. Who are you?" The girl stopped walking. She turned, her face glowing faintly in the pendant's light. "My name is Arya," she said softly. "I am not from here. I came from far away. Too far for you to imagine." Daniel stared, waiting for her to explain more. Arya lifted the pendant so he could see it clearly. Strange lines glowed across its surface, symbols that shifted and rearranged themselves into patterns Daniel couldn't understand. "This is called the Star Key," she explained. "It belongs to my people. It can open doors between worlds. That is why the hunters want it. If they get it, they can invade your world." Daniel's mouth went dry. "Invade, you mean? They're not from this planet?" Arya nodded. "They follow me. They will not stop until the star key is theirs. My mother sent me here to protect it. And to wait for her. Daniel's mind spun. Everything sounded impossible, yet the evidence glowed right in front of him. The hunters. The pendant. The fear in her eyes. None of it was a game, but why me? He asked. Why did I find you? Arya lowered her gaze. Because you are the only one who stopped to help me. Everyone else passed by. My mother said a human with a brave heart would find me. She was right. Her words struck something deep inside Daniel. He didn't feel brave. He felt terrified, but she looked at him as if he was already her protector. Before he could respond, the tunnel walls trembled. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the stones. Arya's eyes widened. They're coming again, she whispered. They're learning to track me faster. Daniel clenched his fists. Then we keep moving. Show me the way. Arya nodded and began walking again, faster this time. The tunnel stretched endlessly ahead, but the pendant's glow kept the darkness away. As they moved deeper, Daniel glanced back. For a moment he swore he saw faint lights flickering in the tunnel behind them. Not the glow of the pendant, different lights. Cold. Blue. The hunters were not far. Arya whispered urgently, If they reach us now, before my mother comes, everything will end. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't know what fate had pulled him into this, but one thing was clear. There was no turning back now. They had to survive. And he had to know the full truth of this strange girl and her dangerous secret. The tunnel stretched endlessly, damp walls echoing each step Daniel and Arya took. Water dripped from cracks above, every drop sounding like a ticking clock in the silence. Daniel's breath was heavy, his nerves burning. He wanted to believe they were safe, but the faint humming behind them kept growing louder. The hunters were coming. Arya clutched the star key tightly, its glow shifting between soft pulses and sharp flashes. Daniel noticed it responded not only to her touch but also to the presence of danger. Each time the hum behind them grew stronger, the pendant's light flickered wildly like a warning. Daniel whispered, They're close, aren't they? Arya nodded, her voice low and tense. Closer than before. They're learning. The word sent a chill down Daniel's spine. Learning. That meant these things weren't just machines. They were smart. They adapted. Suddenly the tunnel split into two paths. One led upward into what looked like a collapsed stairway. The other stretched deeper into the darkness. Arya froze, uncertain. Daniel swallowed hard. Which way? Arya lifted the pendant. Its light swirled into strange symbols that seemed to float in the air before fading. She studied them carefully, then pointed to the left. This way. It leads outside, she said firmly. They turned left and began running, but the hum behind them grew sharper. Daniel risked a glance back, and his blood ran cold. Blue lights glimmered in the darkness, multiple pairs moving fast. Shadows of tall figures stretched across the tunnel walls. The hunters were no longer just walking. They were running. Run! Daniel shouted. The tunnel shook with the sound of pursuit. Metal feet slammed against stone with terrifying speed. The air filled with a harsh mechanical growl like engines roaring inside hollow chests. Daniel grabbed Arya's hand and sprinted. The tunnel walls blurred as they rushed forward, but the hunters were closing the distance too quickly. Arya whispered something under her breath, words Daniel didn't understand. The pendant blazed suddenly, casting a beam of light forward. For a moment the tunnel glowed like daylight, revealing broken pipes, shattered walls, and, at the far end, an iron gate leading outside. There, Daniel gasped. But as they neared the gate, a shadow dropped down from above. One of the hunters had taken a different path and now blocked their way. Its glowing eyes locked on Arya, its body towering, metal claws scraping against the ground. Daniel froze in shock, but Arya pulled at his arm. Don't stop, she cried. The hunter roared, a sound like grinding steel. It charged. Daniel had no weapon, no plan. His instincts screamed to turn and run, but there was no time. At the last second, he grabbed a loose metal pipe from the tunnel floor and swung it with all his strength. The pipe clanged against the hunter's chest with a deafening ring. It barely staggered, but for 1 second its glowing eyes flickered. Arya lifted the pendant and a burst of light shot out, striking the hunter directly. The creature howled, staggering back, its claws slashing the stone wall. The tunnel shook from the impact. Go, Arya shouted. Daniel didn't argue. He shoved the gate hard. It screeched but swung open just enough for them to slip through. Together they ran out into the night air, gasping as the cool wind hit their faces. They had emerged into an abandoned rail yard. Rusted train cars lined the tracks and weeds grew between the rails. The sky was dark, covered in heavy clouds with no moon to guide them. But behind them the hunters weren't finished. The gate burst apart with a metallic crash and more of them poured into the rail yard. Daniel's stomach dropped. There were at least 4 now. Their glowing eyes lit the darkness like eerie lanterns. "They won't stop," Arya said, clutching the pendant. Her small voice was steady, almost calm. "We have to lose them." Daniel scanned the yard quickly. Old train cars, broken machinery, a collapsed shed. Maybe, just maybe, they could use the terrain. "Come on," he said, pulling her toward the nearest row of cars. They darted between rusted metal giants, their footsteps echoing. Behind them, the hunters split apart, spreading out to surround them. Daniel's heart pounded. He had no plan. Just keep moving. Just don't let them catch us. As they turned a corner, one of the hunters leapt from the top of a car, landing with a crash that sent sparks flying. Its glowing claws swiped dangerously close, tearing through the air. Daniel pulled Arya down just in time, the strike missing by inches. The pendant flared and the hunter staggered again, shielding its eyes. Arya's face glowed with the light, her expression fierce despite her fear. Daniel realized something. The light wasn't just protection. It weakened them. "Keep it shining," he shouted. "They hate it." Arya nodded, lifting the pendant high. Its glow spread wider, pushing back the hunters as they hissed and growled. But Daniel could see it in her face. The effort drained her. Her small body trembled under the strain. The hunters regrouped, circling them like predators. Daniel's mind raced. They couldn't fight forever. They needed escape. Then in the distance, Daniel spotted a half-collapsed tunnel leading into the hillside. It was narrow, but maybe too small for the hunters' massive bodies. "There." He pointed. Arya's eyes followed, and she nodded. Together, they dashed toward the tunnel. The hunters roared in unison and gave chase, their heavy steps shaking the earth. Daniel and Arya dove into the narrow passage just as claws scraped the entrance behind them. Sparks lit the dark as the hunters tried to force their way in, but the tunnel was too tight. Their roars echoed in frustration. Daniel lay on the ground, chest heaving while Arya leaned against the wall, the pendant still glowing faintly. For now, they had escaped. But Daniel knew the truth. This was not victory. It was only survival. The hunters were still out there, and each time they escaped, the creatures came back faster, stronger, and smarter. Arya looked at him with tired eyes. "They won't stop," she whispered. "Until the star key is gone, or until I am." Daniel clenched his fists, his fear hardening into something else. He didn't know why fate had placed him here, but one thing was certain. He wasn't going to let them take her, not while he was alive. The tunnel was dark and cramped, the air heavy with dust and damp earth. Daniel's hands scraped against jagged stone as he crawled forward, his breath ragged. Behind him, Arya's pendant glowed faintly, casting thin light across the narrow walls. They had escaped, but only barely. The hunters' roars still echoed outside, their claws screeching as they tried to tear into the rock. Daniel prayed the stone was too thick, that the tunnel would hold. Arya crawled close behind him. Her small voice was calm, but her words chilled him. "They won't stop. They'll circle around. They always do." Daniel wanted to argue, to tell her they'd be safe now, but he couldn't lie. She knew more than him. She had seen this before. Finally, the tunnel opened into a wider chamber. Daniel stumbled to his feet, brushing dirt from his arms. The space was silent, lit only by the pendant's soft pulse. Old bricks lined the walls, remnants of some forgotten underground system. Arya sank onto a stone block, holding the star key close. The glow reflected in her tired eyes. Daniel crouched beside her. "You said your mother is coming." "Where? How?" "Because right now we need help." Arya looked at the pendant, her fingers tracing its strange symbols. The key calls to her. Every pulse, every light, it's a signal. She can follow it even across the stars. But until she arrives, I must keep it safe. Daniel's chest tightened. "And these hunters? They know about it too." Arya nodded. "Yes, they smell the signal like blood and water." A silence fell between them. Daniel rubbed his forehead, trying to process. He was an ordinary man, someone who lived paycheck to paycheck, someone invisible in the world. Yet here he was, crawling through tunnels with a girl who claimed to come from another world, hunted by machines with glowing eyes. It all felt unreal, except it was happening. The ground shook suddenly, a faint tremor rolling through the chamber. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Daniel froze. "Please don't tell me that's them again," he muttered, but Arya's face brightened instead of darkening. She stood clutching the pendant. "No, it's her." "She's close," Daniel blinked. "Your mother?" Before she could answer, the chamber filled with light. Not the weak flicker of the pendant. This was brighter, sharper, like a star had broken open underground. Daniel shielded his eyes, heart hammering. A figure stepped out of the light. She was tall, her presence commanding, her movements graceful, yet strong. Her hair shimmered like threads of silver, her eyes glowing faintly with the same light as the pendant. A long cloak flowed around her, woven with symbols that pulsed as if alive. Arya gasped, tears forming in her eyes. "Mother!" The woman opened her arms and Arya rushed into them, clutching her tightly. For the first time, Daniel saw relief on the girl's face. Daniel stood frozen, unable to find words. This woman, this being, was not ordinary. She radiated power, but also something else. Wisdom, sadness, and authority. The woman's glowing eyes turned to Daniel. Her voice was soft, yet it filled the chamber like music. "You are the one who protected her." Daniel swallowed hard. I tried. I didn't really know what I was doing." Her gaze pierced him, calm but intense. "You did more than most humans would have. You stayed. You fought. For that I owe you a debt." Daniel shifted uncomfortably under her eyes. "Look, I don't need a reward. I just wanted to keep her safe." "Those things out there, they are hunters," the woman interrupted. "Machines born from a dying empire. They are relentless because they fear what my daughter carries. If they claim the star key, not just your city, but your entire world will fall." Daniel's stomach twisted. He had guessed as much, but hearing it confirmed by her voice made it feel heavier. The woman placed a hand on Arya's shoulder. "She carries the future of my people, and now by choice she has placed her trust in you." Daniel frowned. "Trust in me? I'm nobody. I can't fight these things. I'm just human," the woman said, tilting her head. "Sometimes that is enough." Her words struck deep. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it again, unsure how to respond. But before the silence could settle, a metallic roar shattered the chamber. The walls trembled violently. The hunters had found another way in. The woman's eyes narrowed. "They are here." Blue light flickered through the tunnel entrance. The hunters poured in, their glowing eyes cutting through the shadows. Daniel's pulse spiked. "What do we do?" The woman stepped forward, her cloak flaring. Her voice was steady, unafraid. "We fight." She raised her hands and light erupted from her palms, forming a shield that shimmered like crystal. The hunters slammed against it, claws screeching, but the barrier held. Daniel stared in awe. She was powerful, more powerful than anything he'd ever seen. But even as she held the line, she turned to Daniel. "I cannot protect her forever. She needs someone who can walk beside her in this world, someone who will not run even when hope seems lost." Daniel's chest tightened. Was she talking about him? The woman's glowing eyes locked onto his. "Because you chose to protect her, I must make you a proposal." Daniel's breath caught. "A proposal?" "Yes," she said. Her voice echoed with weight.
"Join us, accept the bond."
"Become her guardian, not just for tonight, but for all that is coming." Daniel's mind spun. His world, his ordinary life, everything he thought he knew. It all teetered on the edge of something vast and terrifying. Behind the shield, the hunters roared louder, their claws striking again and again. The barrier began to crack. The woman stepped closer, her hand outstretched toward him. "Choose now, Daniel. Walk away and forget this ever happened. Or take the path no human has ever walked before." The chamber shook, dust raining from above. Arya clutched the pendant, her wide eyes pleading with him, and in that moment, Daniel realized this was no longer just her fight, it was his too. The chamber shook as the hunters pounded against the glowing shield. Sparks flew with every strike. The woman's power held, but cracks spiderwebbed across the barrier. Daniel could hear the strain in the sound it made, like glass about to shatter. Her hand was still outstretched toward him, her voice calm yet firm. "Choose, Daniel. Walk away and return to your old life, or step forward and accept the bond. If you choose the second path, your life will never be the same again." Daniel's heart thundered. His throat felt dry. He wanted to believe this was all some strange nightmare, but the fear in Arya's eyes and the mechanical roars behind the shield were too real. He shook his head slowly. Why me? I'm nobody. I don't have weapons, I don't have training. I can't protect her from them. The woman's glowing eyes softened. You already have. You stood when others would have run. You fought when you had no reason to. You chose her safety over your own. That is why you... Daniel glanced at Arya. She clutched the star key tightly, her small body trembling, but her gaze was fixed on him. Hopeful, pleading. She believed in him. The shield groaned. A massive claw broke through for a moment, then scraped back as the woman reinforced it. She didn't flinch, but sweat lined her brow. Even she had limits. Daniel stepped back, panic rising. What if I fail? What if they take her anyway? The woman lowered her hand slowly, her voice quiet but steady. Failure comes when we do nothing. If you walk away now, you will fail her without even trying. But if you accept, you will not stand alone. The bond will give you strength beyond what you know. The bond? Daniel repeated. She nodded. A connection between you, Arya, and the key. It will change you. It will give you the power to shield her, the power to fight, the power to endure. But once accepted, you cannot undo it. Your old life will be gone. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He thought about his small apartment, his job, his quiet life where nothing ever happened. A life safe, predictable, but empty. And then he thought about this girl, Arya, this strange child who clung to him like he was her only chance. He met the woman's gaze. If I accept, what happens to me? Her eyes glowed brighter. You will become more than human. Not a machine, not one of my kind, but something new. A bridge between worlds. Behind her, the shield cracked again. Shards of light splintered and fell like glass. The hunters roared louder, sensing weakness. Arya cried out, Please, Daniel. Don't leave me. Her voice pierced him deeper than any weapon. Daniel clenched his fists. His whole body trembled, not from fear this time, but from the weight of choice. He looked at Arya, then back at the woman. Finally, he stepped forward. I'll do it. I can't walk away. The woman's expression softened. For the first time, Daniel thought he saw pride in her glowing eyes. She raised her hand again, but not toward the hunters this time, toward him. Then take the bond. Her palm hovered above his chest. A surge of light burst out, flowing into him like liquid fire. Daniel gasped, collapsing to his knees as the energy tore through his veins. His body burned, his vision blurred, and for a moment he thought he would die. Arya rushed to him, clutching his hand. Hold on, you can do this! The light grew brighter, filling the chamber until the shadows vanished. Daniel's mind flooded with strange visions, stars stretching across endless skies, worlds beyond his own, creatures both beautiful and terrifying. And in the middle of it all, Arya's face shining like a beacon. The bond was made. When the light faded, Daniel staggered to his feet. His body felt different, stronger, sharper, alive with energy he couldn't explain. His skin glowed faintly, and in his chest burned a symbol that mirrored the star key's light. He looked down at his hands. They pulsed with faint power. What am I now? The woman's voice was firm. Her guardian, chosen by the key itself. The hunters roared again, breaking another layer of the shield. Daniel turned toward them instinctively, and to his surprise, the fear that had always paralyzed him was gone. Instead, a strange calm filled him, like he was ready. The woman studied him carefully. Your bond is new, raw. You will learn in time. But tonight you must survive. Protect her. Daniel nodded, his fear replaced by determination. He stepped in front of Arya, his body glowing faintly in rhythm with her pendant. The hunters charged, their claws raised. The shield finally shattered. The chamber filled with chaos, metallic roars, flying sparks, the clash of worlds. But Daniel didn't step back. He braced himself, ready to face what came, because now he was no longer just a man, he was chosen. The shield collapsed in a shower of light, scattering like broken glass. The hunters surged forward, metal claws scraping, eyes glowing with cold fury. Their roars shook the chamber. Daniel stepped in front of Arya, his heart steady. The strange energy from the bond still pulsed inside him, glowing faintly beneath his skin. He didn't understand it fully, but instinct guided him. For the first time since this nightmare began, he wasn't paralyzed by fear. One hunter lunged first, claws raised. Daniel lifted his hand without thinking. A flash of light burst from his palm, colliding with the hunter mid-strike. The creature flew backward, slamming into the stone wall with a metallic roar. Daniel staggered, shocked by his own strength. His chest burned, his veins alive with fire, but he stood tall. The woman's voice carried through the chaos. "The bond is alive within you. Trust it." 2 more hunters charged. Daniel braced himself, but Arya lifted the star key. Its glow synchronized with the symbol on Daniel's chest, the 2 lights pulsing together. A wave of energy rippled outward, slowing the hunters as if time itself resisted them. Daniel seized the moment. He moved faster than he ever thought possible. His fist collided with the nearest hunter's chest and the metal dented under the force. Another swung at him, but he ducked, grabbed a broken pipe from the ground and drove it through glowing joints. Sparks erupted as the hunter collapsed, but the battle wasn't over. The largest of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward. Its glowing eyes burned brighter, its claws stretching like blades. It roared, and the sound made the ground tremble. Daniel's newfound courage faltered for a heartbeat. This one was different, stronger, smarter. Arya's voice cut through the fear. "You're not alone, Daniel. The bond means we fight together." Her small hand gripped his tightly, the star key blazing in her grasp. Energy flowed into him, and the symbol on his chest burned brighter. The hunter charged. Daniel moved, not as a man, but as something more. His body glowed, his steps leaving streaks of light in the air. He collided with the hunter in a clash that shook the chamber. Sparks flew, claws slashed, and for a terrifying moment it seemed Daniel would be overwhelmed. But then he remembered Arya's words, "Together." He tightened his grip on her hand. The star key pulsed violently, sending a surge of power through him. His body ignited with blinding light. With a roar of his own, Daniel struck the hunter with all his strength. The impact sent the creature crashing into the wall. Its body sparked, then collapsed into silence. The chamber fell still. The hunters lay broken, their glowing eyes dimmed. Daniel stood, chest heaving, every muscle trembling. His body ached, but the bond's energy kept him upright. He turned to Arya, who still held the star key close. She looked at him with wide, shining eyes, not with fear, but with trust. "You did it," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "We did it." The woman stepped forward, her glowing eyes studying him with quiet pride. "The choice is made. You are no longer a bystander, Daniel. You are her guardian. From this moment on, your path is bound to hers." Daniel exhaled slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. His old life, his small apartment, his job, his ordinary days, felt like a memory already fading. There was no going back. He looked at Arya, and she smiled faintly, holding his hand tighter. But before relief could fully settle, the woman's face darkened. "This victory is only the beginning. The hunters were scouts. More will come. Stronger. Smarter. And the empire that made them will not stop until the key is theirs." Daniel's chest tightened. "Then what do we do?" The woman's gaze turned toward the glowing pendant. "The key has awakened. It revealed itself to you. That means you are now part of its destiny. Together we must follow the map it carries. It will lead us to the answers, and to the war that is coming." Daniel looked at the star key. For the first time, he noticed the glow had shifted into something new, a pattern that stretched like a star map. Pulsing faintly against the chamber wall, Arya whispered, her voice full of awe. "It's showing the way." Daniel's stomach twisted. He had wanted a simple life, one without danger. But now, he realized he had stepped into something far bigger than himself, something that could decide the future of his entire world. He squeezed Arya's hand and met the woman's gaze. "I don't know how to fight a war across stars, but if protecting her means standing against whatever comes, then I'll do it." The woman's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then you are ready." Above them, the chamber ceiling cracked. Dust rained down. Outside, the faint echo of more mechanical roars carried on the wind. The fight wasn't over. It had only begun. Daniel looked one last time at the glowing star map, then at the girl who now depended on him. He drew a deep breath. And in that moment, he knew the truth. His ordinary life was gone forever. From this night onward, he wasn't just Daniel. He was the guardian of Arya, protector of the Star Key, and the first human to step into a war beyond the stars. The choice had been made.